Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of my YouTube podcast on the channel, on EAMStrength channel. So in this episode, I am fortunate to be joined by my oldest friend. He happens to be an MD at a Hospital Kuala Lumpur. His name is Dr. Amir Ayub. So I think without further ado, I let Dr. Amir just briefly introduce himself, and then we're gonna go jump into the topic straight away. All right. So Amir,
Okay. I'm Muhammad Amir Ayub. I'm a doctor working in the Anesthesiology Department of HKL. I'm also a recreational powerlifter. I would consider myself recreational since I only competed once. Other than that, you can read about the stuff that I like to write about, including my training log and my website, www.anaayub.com.
Cool. I mean, for me, once you competed, you're no longer recreational. I think you are competitive powerlifter. And then it's not that like you go, it's not like you entered the tournament, the competition just for the sake of it. You actually put up good numbers, actually very impressive numbers on that fact. And also you came in third, right, in your weight class?
Yeah, I did come in third.
All right, so maybe you can share with viewers out there what was your numbers?
So the other day, how much was it again? I think I squatted squatted 155 or 150 kgs, and then benched 115 and deadlifted 215. Basically, I got all lifts white lighted because it was my first ever meet, and I wasn't greedy.
Yeah, actually, I think you're pretty conservative in the competition. I think you have more in you, but it was a very impressive numbers nonetheless for your first ever meet. And considering what is your career, what you're doing as an MD, and then at the same time having time to train for competition, and to to come third. I mean, it's impressive. And also, if I'm not mistaken, 2 weeks after that, you entered another competition. Am I right?
Yeah. I did I entered another competition, nothing related to lifting. It was the Tony Roma's ribs eating contest. So I was the defending champion, and I won again.
Yeah.
So last time around, I ate, I think, 10 lamb ribs with fries. And then last year, I ate 10 beef ribs.
Wow. That's impressive. I mean, it's almost as impressive as your lifts, actually. I mean, people may not think there's nothing. There's a relationship between the rib eating contest and the powerlifting contest, but for us, strength athlete, I think that's a very good post meal workout. I think very high in protein for your recovery and for your muscle hypertrophy. So it's kind of it's kind of like you are accomplished in the training, in training, strength training, and also you're kind of accomplished in like nutrition.
That is definitely not an accomplishment.
Yeah, but you get more attention, media attention from the Tony Romas, right? You were in the paper.
Yeah.
The Star, right?
I was in most of the major papers. In fact, those from the press for both years, I think they were the same guys, because I remembered their faces and they also remembered me.
Okay, right, cool. So anyway, I think as it is already almost 1:30 in the morning at the time we're doing this, so I think we're gonna jump straight into this topic that we're gonna discuss, which is strength training, the new medicine, right? So why specifically that I wanted you to join me to help me explain to the viewers out there strength. What is just to explain and to share your experience as a medical practitioner and also as a strength athlete, the importance of strength training when it comes to health and wellness, especially to the masters population or aging population, because that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Most of my clients are masters population, and then sometimes it's kind of a hard work to convince them to get under the barbell and to train in such a way to progressively get stronger. All right, so maybe as a medical practitioner, it's very interesting to see your perspective and I think and your take on it. Right, so I think let's start off with the number one question that I have for you is that what are the top three health problems that are plaguing Malaysians, especially the aging population?
I would say the top three health problems are the same everywhere. A lot of times we are talking about the non-communicable diseases, which are relatively lifestyle related, which include hypertension, diabetes, as well as cardiovascular problems. And cardiovascular problems can be related to both the heart as well as the brain.
All right. Cool. So I mean, now maybe some people doesn't see the correlation or the relationship between getting stronger through strength training and also with these illnesses that you just mentioned. Maybe you can like briefly explain or maybe just briefly share what you know about how strength training can actually improve the condition of people who are suffering from these illnesses.
Well, most people all talk about how exercise is beneficial, but most of the times people talk about aerobic training as compared to strength training. More and more research nowadays are trying to see how strength training can help in terms of these diseases, and they find that strength training is just as important as aerobic training. And one can also see the sports training, sports medicine statements on strength training and how it helps to manage diseases such as diabetes, to get more insight on the matter. And even when we see in the masters population, sometimes even in those who don't have medical illnesses, they don't have any diabetes or hypertension, but sometimes we see that a lot of these people are actually frail, they're relatively weak, and these kind of people, if they get any kind of insult from illnesses, anything like that, then they become progressively weaker, and they eventually become more dependent in their life. And strength training can help to mitigate all this loss of function in the masters population.
All right. Okay. And I think when we talk about strength training, especially to the general population, people will normally think strength training is equal to training as a bodybuilder, right? Just using machines and just thinking about adding muscles to the frame, as much muscle as they can to the frame, which is one of the objectives of strength training, but not to the extent of what bodybuilders put themselves through the use of drugs and growth hormone and so forth. So maybe you can explain, is it important for masters population to not only retain muscle that they have, but also to maybe increase their muscle mass for masters population?
I would say that in general, increasing strength is probably the main goal, and any added mass is a bonus. Besides, to add muscle is not really easy, especially to the extent that one thinks that many people think that if they train especially those in the, who are in the masses population, or those who are females. They think that once they lift weights, then they're gonna become bulky like a bodybuilder, when that's not really the case. Because those who are truly bodybuilders, bodybuilding is the way of life.
Yeah.
And the way they live, the way they eat, the extra stuff that they may or may not take, is what makes them bulky in the first place. While other people who are in the Gen Pop population, most of the times, what will happen is that once they start strength training, even if they try to focus on mass, they're not gonna become big like a bodybuilder. In most cases, what's gonna happen is that you can either be small or you can be bulky, but usually not both.
Yeah, definitely. Usually when I explain to my clients who needed to lose some body fat, I usually just tell them strength training is more of a tool of compliance rather than the only one or a be all thing to get them to where they want to be. Because you have to take account properly plan nutrition plan as well, right? So is there any medical condition that prevents anybody, especially anybody, from starting up a strength training program?
I would say in general, most people can do any form of strength training program. There are probably a few conditions where it might not be advisable to undergo strength training programs. For example, those with brain conditions, for example, abnormal blood vessels in the brain, things like that. Then doing any form of strain is probably not advisable. But then again, in that case, then doing any form of physical activity is probably bad for him or her. Usually in those who don't have those kind of conditions, usually any progressive form of strength training is probably advisable, and especially so if they already do have medical illnesses, because physical activity is what's going to help to ensure longevity in those people.
Yeah. So just correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, when we lift, right? Especially like what you and me doing right now. We're doing we try to increase our strength through powerlifting or whatever method that we chose. So we use a method of breathing or bracing called Valsalva, right?
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Valsalva the mechanism, the mechanics of it quite the same as when you went to the toilet and pooping?
Yeah, it's generally the same. It's the
Really
same mechanism.
So if you can safely poop, yeah, most likely, most often than not, you should be able to do some kind of a strength training. But again, there's a caveat to this. If possible, try to get a credible, knowledgeable, and experienced coach, and try not to judge a coach just by how he or she looks, right? Because I've been, I think you and me, we've been to the gyms all over Malaysia, and in every gym there will be one trainer that has a bodybuilderish look, but like you kind of like cringe at the way they train their clients. Either it is too intense or not enough intensity, or performing some kind of a trendy fitness thing, which is harmful in long run for the well-being of the clients. So I think we covered quite a good grounds, since we are already at 1:40 in the morning and both of us need to go to work tomorrow. So I think we'll try to wind this interview up with busting some popular myth that we hear in strength conditioning, health and fitness world, right? So are you up for it?
Yeah.
Good. Right. So the most commonly myth that I hear from my clients or people around me is that I can't squat. My knee hurt. My knees hurt. So what's your take on that?
I think anyone, most people can squat as long as they are coached correctly for the most part. If the person can't squat, we can always make modifications to that, usually in the form of making it more posterior dominant, which is probably the default way how I would want a person to squat anyway. So having them do something like a box squat or something closer to a powerlifter style squat, not necessarily full powerlifter form, but simply cueing them so that instead of having the butt move up and down, but having the butt move more to the back, more backwards than how it's usually done. Usually that will help to alleviate the stress on the knees. So that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, definitely. With me, from my experience working with the masters clients, most of the time when my clients do have some kind of a tweak or injury or past injuries in the knees, whether it's operation from ACL, something like that. What I find is they have very minimal problems when it comes to squatting, when it is more posterior, when it's using more of a posterior chain, which is a low bar back squat, like you mentioned. And also, one thing you're missing from the lot of trainers in Malaysia is that they do not know how to regress the movements. They know, most of us know how to progress, but a lot of coaches and trainers does not know how to regress movements. So for example, I've seen this one horror show of a training session by this trainer at the gym that I usually train my clients. Uh, the trainer tried to train his clients, who is about 50-ish, something like that, to squat, and the guy very clearly cannot squat for whatever reason, whether it be mobility issues or just lack of strength overall. Um, but he forces his client just to get down, and ends up with very poor looking um, squat, which is just looking at it, it's just like a disaster waiting to happen for this old man, for this masters guy. So I mean, I see that a lot. I mean, do you see that in a gym that you training?
At my current gym, to tell you the truth, I see a lot of good form.
Right.
Most of the time, it's good form. There's only a few people here and there that sometimes do half reps or anything like that. But in general, the form is good. In my previous gym, there were not really many trainers. I mean, I would say there's no trainers. They were all just training themselves. So in those kind of situations, I do tend to see quite a number of those who who deadlift with a really bad back posture and things like that. But so far in KL, it has been quite good in terms of seeing the form of how people lift. I think in general, what people who train need to realize that for those who are in the Gen Pop population, those who are not really competing, things like that, I think getting the movement first, making the good movement a priority is probably the aim. And once they can get the good movement, then one should regress if they can't do a particular move, a particular exercise. But then if they can do a particular exercise correctly, and you think you want to gain more from a more compound movement, then they can progress the movement to a more complicated movement, as long as the form is good.
Yep, definitely. And also, just if you, I mean, I'm sure if people listening in and they are in the age category of a master's population, squat and deadlift are something that they're very scared of. So, like Amir said, find a good coach to teach you how to squat and deadlift, and then as you get stronger, your body, your muscle, your bone, your ligaments, and your joints and everything will get stronger, and therefore will help you from preventing injury. So hello.
Yep.
Sorry, I thought I lost you there. Right. So anything you want to add in the to the squatting?
Nothing much. I would say that everybody should learn to squat. Everybody should learn to deadlift because it's what people do every day.
Yeah.
Even when anytime there's something on the floor, you're gonna have to either squat or deadlift to pick it up. So I think it's good to train the movement so that one can do those kind of activities in real life.
Definitely. And when we say train squat and deadlift, of course we start from relative to where you are right now. I mean, we don't need, for example, people have some misconception that once I ask them to squat, I'm going to load them up with like 100 kilograms on the barbell. So that's not the case. Usually you just start with the body weight, and if you can, for whatever reason you cannot do it, a good coach will troubleshoot. We try to figure out why it is, and then work around it, and then hopefully, the aim is to work you up to the barbell, right? So at one point or another, you will be working on a barbell, but don't think for a second. Once you work with the coach, he or she gonna put you under a very heavy load, unless the coach is
if they really think that a heavy load is necessary, then I think they might want to try themselves out doing like single leg deadlifts or pistol squats, and then they'll know that something that's unloaded may not necessarily be easy.
Yes, definitely. You're right. So okay, on to the next myth. High protein diet causes kidney problem.
This in general, it's a myth. People in the past said that high protein diets are bad because it causes some changes in the kidney related to increased renal blood flow and renal filtration. But actually, more and more studies have come out suggesting that it's more of an adaptive response to the high protein diet. But otherwise, in terms of the function itself, it still remains normal. So in general, I would say that if you have normal kidney function, then a high protein diet won't do anything to you. You will just adapt to it. But if you do have a kidney problem, kidney disease, then taking a high protein diet is probably inadvisable, and one has to moderate the protein intake, because then whatever the waste products of protein needs to be removed, then the kidney will not be able to function well enough to remove them, and they'll have an accumulation of acid. But if you are normal, young and healthy, then there's no reason why you can't eat a high protein diet if that's what you so desire.
Yeah, and then I think you pointed out on many occasions that Malaysian do not eat enough protein anyway. In general, in general, we do not eat enough protein because our diet is not really based on protein. It's mostly carb, right?
Malaysian diet is a carb-based diet.
Carb-based diet,
so for people to be really worried about something they're not doing anyway, it sounds like a moot point.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. Let's go on to the next point. I think we covered this before, but maybe we can just re-emphasize again. Maintaining or increasing muscle mass is not a concern of a master's program.
I would say it's still a concern, not necessarily the mass per se, but actually the strength. Even when it comes to my field in anesthesia, sometimes we see these patients who don't have any medical illness, but they are skinny and frail, and generally weak, and generally fragile as a twig. So they have this, they can have problems, for example, like osteoporosis, and then they get hip fractures, things like that. And the problem is that when they undergo surgery or any kind of have any kind of insult, like having chest infections, things like that, their recovery is not as robust as that of someone who has more normal strength, and they have trouble trying to rehab themselves to reach the stage that they were before. And that's something that we call as being frail, as frailty. And sometimes we do want trying to counter that. So I would say whether you are skinny, it's you should be strong. And then even for those who are heavier, then it's more important to be strong, because if one is heavy and weak, then that means they're not gonna move. And when they're not gonna move, then they're just gonna become weaker and weaker, and because of that. So regardless of the state of the body in those master population group, then they still need to be strong in general.
I mean, like I usually tell my clients, is that strength training just is a reason for your muscle to stick around longer, right? Because I think as you age, you tend to lose, if I'm not mistaken, like 10% of muscle mass per year or something like that. I may be wrong, but I think I read it somewhere. So I think strength training, strength training need to be done, especially in muscle population, so that the muscle has a reason to stick around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and also okay, maybe what kind of let's say that right now, I know you're not coaching anybody. You've coached your friends in the past, yeah, but let's say right now you I put you in a spot right now. If you're a strength coach like I am right now, and you have a client, someone in the masters population, what kind of program would you put him on, him or her?
As being someone who's biased towards 531, I think that's probably what I'll stick with in terms of the general structure, meaning that I'll have one day as a squat day, one day as a deadlift day, another day as a bench day, and another day as a military press day. So basically, you have a squat deadlift movement, and then you have a horizontal push and a horizontal, a horizontal push and a vertical push. So I would try to pair it up with the way that I pair it up for myself, meaning that for my squat and deadlift days, in terms of the accessory work, I'll do something like a core exercise, and then plus something for my shoulders, and then in terms of the shoulder rotator cuff strength, that's what I mean. And then for the upper body days, I would pair it with the opposite movement. So, for example, on my military press days, I would pair it with pull-ups, and then for my horizontal push days, I pair it with something like rows. So, which exercise I choose will basically go back to what I mentioned before. I probably want to know what they can do, and then try to progress from there. But probably for let's say if I have someone who's really a beginner, then probably I would do something like focus more on something that's a single leg for the lower limb movements. For example, for the squat, I may have them do something as simple as stair climbing, or even something like a pistol squat to a box, just so that they gain the necessary strength in their hips, quads, and then also having the proper ankle flexibility. And then for something like on the deadlift day, I'll probably do something like a body weight single leg deadlift, which both of those lower leg movements are good for balance, which is also needed in the masters population anyway. So that's probably what I do for the lower leg days. For the upper body days, I probably do like I mentioned before, like a bench press, or I will probably, for most people, I'll probably regress them to a push-up first. Whether it's a horizontal push-up or a push-up to a wall, I'll probably progress them, have them do push-ups first, and then if they can do push-ups well, then probably I'd load the push-ups. And if they can do the loaded push-ups well, then probably then I progress them to a bench press, because in the masses population, I probably want to ensure that they have a good rotator cuff function. And in terms of major movements, there's probably no better way than push-ups to help with that. And if I have them do push-ups, then I'll probably pair it with a rowing movement, whether it's gonna be a TRX row or a dumbbell or barbell row. But probably for the most case, for a beginner, I'll probably do pair them with a TRX row, with the angle being almost vertical first, and then progressively more horizontal. And for the vertical push, I'll probably do something first with a dumbbell military press, and pair it with something like a chin-up or push-up. If they can't do that, then I'll probably regress to something like an eccentric pull-up or push-up. And if that doesn't work, which is probably quite rare, then I'll probably pair it with something like something doing push-ups, pull-ups on a pull-up machine that can help to really unload the weight. But for the most part, I think that if one can have a box with a pull-up bar and then have them do eccentrics, then I think it's a good way to regress and rapidly build up the upper back strength to one day do proper pull-ups alongside losing weight.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good answer, very good answer. But of course, each coach, they have their own style, and I have to be. I think a lot of people have to like be thankful that Amir is not your coach, because he's kind of a masochist, as how he trained himself. Actually, he loves pain. Sometimes he seems to be aroused by that, for whatever reason. So
yeah, I think pain is good.
Yeah,
I think pain is good.
all right, so cool. I mean, that's a good. I mean, like I said, very good answer. But usually when people ask me this kind of question, I try to be a little bit of a jerk, and I will answer, it depends.
I think that's always the answer. Just like how I answer. It depends.
Yeah, and also I think most of the time people ask you, knowing that you are a medical doctor, right? People will ask you this like very vague general question. And usually the answer you would want to give them is, it depends.
Exactly.
Right? But I mean, I'm glad that you actually laid out the plan, the hypothetical plan, so that people can see. It's a lot of thinking goes into programming an exercise program. It's not just about, oh, I'm going to take this machine and pair it with that machine, and I'm going to take this and make him suffer more and do 1,000 burpees and then go for 300-meter lunge. It's not about making your client die on the first day of training. No, it's about like thinking about what he needs. Like that's why it has the title for our video today. Barbell training, strength training as a new medicine. As medicine, as a doctor, you prescribe medicine. You have to give such dose or such certain kind of medicine and consume it at a certain time, right? Am I right? As a doctor, that's a normal thing that you do, right? So this is what I'm trying to share with people out there, especially for people in Malaysia. When it comes to exercise, there's no better way than strength training with a barbell, of course. And then they need to like educate themselves or get a coach that's educated and knowledgeable to know how to prescribe these exercises, how to plan out an effective, sustainable strength training program, and also accompanied by a very sound nutrition plan, right? So I think the last point is the last point is a statement that I usually hear from people who ask me, what is the best way to be healthy, or what is the best thing for my wellness? And I say strength training with a good diet. and they would usually answer back with a statement like, "There's no need to strength training. It's just for my health. I don't think I need to strength training for my health." So, what's your comment on that?
I think the fact that the sports medicine statements states that both aerobic and strength training is important for people with, for example, with diabetes. I think it speaks to the fact that one needs strength and one needs some aerobic fitness as well, and both actually complement each other. One really can't do proper aerobic training if you don't have a proper base in terms of the movement capacity and proper technique, which proper strength training teaches you. And one can't really strength train with good recovery and good speed if they don't have the aerobic fitness to recover between sets and between sessions. So I would say that both are equally important, and it's ill-advised to say that one does not need one or the other.
Definitely, I mean, I think I'm in agreement with you there. It's just, like I said, when it comes to physical activities, we have a spectrum. From the one side is a very strength based, like a power lifter who doesn't really want to do any cardio at all, and to the other end is a very endurance based athletes who doesn't seem to quite understand the importance of strength, developing strength. In my coaching style is that I tend to be somewhere like you, somewhere in the middle, a good combination of both. But again, it depends on what kind of client I'm dealing with. Most of the time, I'll be leaning towards a bit more strength than aerobic. Aerobic exercise usually I prescribe for clients who are very overweight, and I need to get them to a certain fitness level before they can perform 3 sets of 5 of squats or something like that.
I think even for those kind of people to do aerobic training, I think most people have this misconception that aerobic training means running.
Yeah, exactly.
It has to be something that's actually very high impact. Actually, you can do low impact cardio and gain the benefits of it. For example, just incline walking or stair climbing. That's still cardio. You don't necessarily have to do something like jogging or running to do something that's aerobic exercise in the first place. And I think if they think that you don't get anything aerobic wise from strength training, then I think they might want to do something like 7 reps of a deadlift with, let's say, 170 kilos and try to see whether that makes them breathless or not, or whether they want to do supersets of pull-ups and push-ups and see whether there's no cardio component in that.
Yeah, like I said, you are a masochist, so I'm glad that you are not a coach. 170 kilo for what? For reps?
7 reps.
7 reps. Right.
What's wrong with that?
A lot of people cannot even live for 1 rep, 170, let alone 7 reps. Cannot live. The 1 rep is not even 170. Let alone you ask them to lift 170.
Well, that's why I'm a powerlifter.
Exactly, right. So and to touch on your point, on your last point, I mean, especially if the client needed to add some muscle mass to the frame, whether they're masters population or just other population, endurance-based sports is very catabolic in nature. So usually, if you want to do it for sport, by all means, but I do advise you to have some kind of strength training program in there along with your running or your endurance or sport training as well. But if you say jogging or cycling is the best way to be healthy, then that's where I think me and Amir kind of in a disagreement with you. Strength training has a carryover effects in more health, fitness, and also physiologically compared to endurance-based sports. But if it's your sport, if you're doing it for sport, by all means, then just ignore what we're saying. But if you think jogging or cycling is the best for your health, then we might argue with you on that.
I think that's why for most people, you just have to focus on the strength training aspect of it, and most people will take care of the cardio because they're gonna do it anyway.
Exactly. You're right. Yeah, I mean that's why we need to emphasize more on the strength training part, because cardio is a lot of people like they tend to do it more easily compared to strength training. Maybe due to the location or the logistics of it, right? You need to go to a gym or to have your own set of barbells and plates and so forth. Anyway, just to and also to touch on that last point. I mean, I remember my late mother, she went out, I went with her on a checkup with her physician, Dr. Ishaq at the Kampung Baru Medical Center. Now it's Alislah Medical Center. And she complained to the doctor her knees hurting. And mind you, my late mother was a very slight, fragile woman. When she passed away, her weight was like 38 kilograms. So, and even though she's tiny and slight, she still have knee pain. And then the doctor, I remember till today now what the doctor told my mom. He said, "You need to do some exercise." And she said, "What kind of exercise? Jogging?" And he corrected her, "No, you need to do some squats." That's the first ever physician, besides from you, I mean, of course, to actually suggest or advise my mom to perform squats. So sadly, at that time, I wasn't a strength coach yet, so I didn't really I didn't really pay that much attention to the doctor's heart, sadly. So, but again, I mean, just to re-emphasize the importance of strength training, even if you are a master's population, the more important it is for you guys, right? So, Amir, anything else you want to add?
I think on that note, I would say that just look at I mean, for a person who works mainly in the operating theater, in the ICU and related areas, I mean, it's quite important to see how strength is needed for any form of good surgical outcome as well as recovery. I mean, you need good respiratory muscle strength so that you can recover from general anesthesia. You need good lower leg strength if you want to recover after having your knee or your hip replaced. And even when you talk about recovery from, let's say, back surgery or things like that, one needs to learn how to have proper posture, know how to properly load their body afterwards, so that they have good function afterwards. I mean, there's no point in having your knee replaced, but since you're too weak, you can't use the knee anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of glad that you said that because I think that's a good place for us to actually end this podcast. It's now it's 2:04 a.m. in the morning, and we both have to get up for work tomorrow.
And that's our life.
Yeah, that's our life. And you're I mean, you're a MD. Some more. You have your on call, your post call, whatever call you have. So I bet it's more challenging for you, and also to have that training session in. I mean, like I said, that's why I'm very impressed with your first powerlifting meet. So are you planning on competing again this year?
From planning to compete. I'll see which kind of meets are available. Last time I competed in the MPA kind of meet. So I'm trying to see whether if I can compete in a IPF certified meet, so that I don't have to meet any of the of the people on steroids, and so that the playing field is a bit more level, and then at the same time, there will be a problem because IPF meets mean that I can't manipulate my weight. So it's some sort of motivation for me to actually try to lose some weight.
All right. So do let me know if you do join, then I can maybe come down again and be your hype man again.
Yeah.
Right. So cool. So do you want to maybe you can share with the viewers out there what was your email address? Sorry, your website again. Where they can follow what you do.
Yeah, so my website is anaayub.com, ANAKAYUB.com.
So
Yeah, it's my blog. So I tend to write stuff about medicine, about tech, specifically Apple, and some other interesting stuff. And at the same time, that's where I post my training log.
Yeah. Cool. So on my end, I think I would like to thank you guys for joining me and Dr. Amir. Please do subscribe to my channel to get more contents like this, and then website, and also please do visit my website at www.engineeringalphamuslim.com. And then also, I haven't been active on Facebook yet, but please do stay tuned to the Facebook, and my Facebook page is on EAMStrength. So I think on that note, thank you guys for joining us, and thank you Amir for making time in your life for this interview, and hopefully we can do more interviews like this in the near future.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, take care, man. Assalamualaikum.
Salam.